Hello class, Ryan again. For this tutorial we will work through exercise 3 at the end of chapter 7 of your textbook. For this one we'll also use solid modeling, but we'll use the extrude command to make things a little bit easier with the assembly. So again, we're going to start a new drawing, use that ACAD 3D since we're in inches, and set these units appropriately to inches and hundredths. So I'm going to type in units, enter. Give them a moment to pull up, and then we'll plug those in and get rolling with our drawing. Computer's still going a bit slow with a lot happening in the background. So we'll go to decimal, hundredth. Okay. Now I'm going to work in the probably in the 2D plane here to start with. So I'm going to go to what is called the top view, and if it's crooked like this, you can hover over your view cube and hit that left arrow, and then it'll get you oriented so north is up and Y is up. I don't like that grid, so we'll turn the grid off. Alright, so I'm going to start by probably drawing a rectangle, REC, and just off in space, hit D, enter for your dimensions. And we want a rectangle that is 2.5 by 1.75. Alright, so there's our base shape. Now we're going to add a circle to the end of it. From the midpoint to the corner is right. That looks good. Now we'll have another circle for the through hole. Diameter of that is 0.625, and that is a slotted hole with an overall length center to center of 0.75, I believe. So I'm going to do CO for copy. Copy that over, F8 for ortho, 0.75, enter. Alright. It's a lot easier to work in 2D before we move into the 3D realm. So I'm going to connect. If you don't have that option, remember, go down to your OSNAP settings and turn on quadrant. I can snap from quadrant to quadrant of a circle, which is nice. And now that I have all this line work, I'm just going to go ahead and trim. So I can pick the bounding edges and trim away like so. On this circle, trim away that, and on this shape, trim away that. So you should have something that looks like this. It's made up of really a polyline, which is 3 sides of a rectangle, the arcs, just like so. So that looks good. And by the way, that 2.5 overall length is to the inner edge. When we start building this thing, it's not the overall lower edge. So we'll get to that more in a moment. Now let's draw the other face while we're here. It's also a rectangle. In this case, dimensions are 1.125 by the same 1.75. And in this case, we have 2 through holes, and we also have 2 radiuses. So I'm going to do a circle. We'll start on this bottom left-hand corner, and it says the radius of that circle is 0.375. Now, to get this, actually the easier way to do this, I don't know why I did it that way, the easier way is to fillet. Fillet, R for radius, 0.375, enter. That's going to be the simplest way. Instead of moving a circle around, we can fillet those corners. Alright, now we can do the circle. And instead of picking the corner, if I type in CEN and hover over this fillet, it picks the correct center, and here the diameter is 0.375. There. Now I can use my MI, which is mirror, pick that, pick my midpoint, ortho is on, so if I drag left and click, it says erase source objects, no, enter. Now I have the 2 through holes, so that was pretty quick. So that's about all I can do in 2D before I move into the 3D realm. So now I'm going to maybe just orbit to get into the 3D realm, and now I'm going to use the extrude command, which is a helpful command here to make these into solid objects. So I can extrude basically anything that's 2D line work if it's a polyline or a region. I talked on our collaborate session, I think, about polylines. So let's try the region command instead. It says select objects. Well, I want to make these 4 lines a region. So now those are one solid region. Now I can do the same thing with these lines here. We have a solid region now. And I'm going to change my visual style to hidden so I can actually see those. Now what I'm going to do is extrude, type it out. I'm going to pick all of these objects at once and give them a thickness or a height of 0.375. Okay, now once that's done, I can start subtracting out the holes with the subtract command. Pick your base object, pick the inner object, pick the base object, enter, pick the inner object, enter, and it cuts it out. Two separate commands. Pick the base object, enter, or spacebar, pick your holes, do that again, pick your holes. Things are overlapping, so be careful of your selection. Hit enter, and give it a nice orbit to make sure that those went all the way through, which they did. Next thing to do is to rotate this face up 60 degrees. So I'm going to do a 3D rotate. My favorite command. When it didn't exist, it was always a pain to rotate. Pick the object, pick a base point, pick an axis, and then type in our angle. So in this case, I want to go a -60. If I typed in 60, it would rotate down. Now remember, all of our dimensions for this object were made from this inside corner here. So that's kind of what we have. Now the unfortunate thing is we're going to have to fill in this gap between these two, and there's different ways to do it. In this case, I'm going to show you another extrude command to get there. So I'm going to do UCS 3P and get the UCS on this face here, like so. Another option is we could use the UCS face command and it would find that face since it's a 3D face. Actually, I'll show that to you. UCS enter to get it back. UCS face. And if I just click on that face, it automatically sets the UCS to that face. It just doesn't have the origin point at the corner. So we'll do a line from that corner. I've got my ortho on straight out like so. And to get a line straight down, I can kind of cheat and go from the quadrant to the end. Oops, I didn't have a good base point. I can go from the quadrant or the end point to the end here. END, end. And then I should be able to extend that line. It's not finer than, so I'll move that line from the end point to the bottom. There we go. Now I'm going to see if I can trim these guys off, like so. And now I can make this into a region. The easier way for me at this point is just to do a polyline and trace over that line work, just like you see here. And then to finish it, you hit C to close it. So now I have a polyline, so I can delete that line and this line, and my polyline remains, just like so. Now if I type in extrude, pick that little pie-shaped four-sided figure, and my extrusion, I want to go that way, and my width is 1.75. So I basically made a filler piece, if you will, and now if I use the union command, I can combine my base, the fillet, and my upper face all into one object. So just a kind of a shortcut to get that done. And the last piece to add is the gusset, and we'll do this right here in the 3D plane. It goes from the very uppermost face, which I'll do just a construction line, to the midpoint, and then it comes out 1 inch. So if I just type in 1, enter, and then complete it, just like that. So I can make that, again, I could trace it as a polyline, or I could type in region and pick my bounding, pick my bounding edges. And if you have your cursor and it overlaps, if you hold down Shift and hit the space bar, it cycles between the overlapping lines. I'm holding down Shift, hitting space bar, so I want to select this one. Now we have a region which I can extrude. Extrude that guy, enter. We want it to be 0.25 thick, and you'll see when I orbit around that it's offset because I went from the midpoint. So now all I have left to do is move him. I'm going to do UCS enter to get back to world UCS so I can actually move him along the y-axis. 0.125. So there you have it. Get yourself, you know, a nice realistic view. Orbit around a little bit. Make sure you haven't forgotten anything or missed anything. But use Extrude to your benefit. It is powerful to take 2D line work and turn them into those lines into 3D objects. If you have questions, get a hold of me. Wish you the best of luck. Thank you.